So please introduce yourself and tell us why you're doing that and a little bit about how is cloud evolving for your company. And when Roberto is done, we'll have everybody else do the same.
I am Roberto Medrano, Executive Vice President of Akana. Akana Inc. We are provider of API security products, API management security products, and cloud integration. And we sell to the Fortune 1000 customers. So everything APIs, everything services, everything microservices is what we manage, monitor, and secure.
Hi, I'm Madhukar, VP of Product Management for Liaison Technologies. And as part of the product team, we've been working on a platform called Alloy, which is based on microservices as well as polyglot persistence. So we can talk more about that, but to answer your question, how cloud has affected us in the last couple of years, we have built out an entire platform that's based on microservices and polyglot persistence.
I'm Justin Criswell. I'm a cloud solutions architect with Alert Logic. We're a 12-year-old security and compliance company that's been providing intrusion detection, vulnerability scanning, log management, and web application firewalls for customers. In the last 6 years, we've focused very heavily on the cloud and have moved, the attack vectors have changed and the way that we deploy has changed. And then most recently, getting heavily integrated in enterprise shared services deployment that have secure reference architectures that then deploy and enable business units to code and secure deployments in the cloud.
Hi, my name is Arvind Rangarajan. I'm a Solutions Marketing Director at BroadSoft. We provide telephony applications software. Recently, we've been offering it for premises customers, but now also from the cloud, UC as a service. We work with all the leading operators. 19 of the top 25 operators around the world use BroadSoft. And I'm here to talk from that perspective for UCAS.
Welcome. I'm Randy Domino from CommVault. I'm the Chief Technologist for our Windows products and on our Microsoft partnership overall. I guess the other thing of note is I've been with CommVault since 1994, so I can probably pretty much introduce when cloud CommVault got integrated with it, which was about 9 years ago. And we provide data management software, a single solution for backup, recovery, archive, e-discovery, search, indexing for the heterogeneous environment. And a key today with cloud has been things like deduplication and encryption from a security perspective. And that seems to be one of the bigger questions a lot of customers ask is, all right, I'm putting my data up there with 10,000 other people. Why is it secure? So I'm sure we'll cover that.
I will come back to that. I like 90. In fact, 94 is not even old school for me.
I've been with CommVault in 94. I've been in the industry a little longer than that.
We have some tales to tell. Roberto, why did you change the name of your company, and is it reflecting how cloud is evolving, or did you just feel like doing it?
Well, some people may not know, we used to be called SOA software. SOA has some positive and negative connotations within people. And we've been doing web services management for a long time and web service security for a long time. But now that we're doing also multiple APIs, API management has become a new facet, and cloud and mobile are new facets that we do. We do cloud integration as well, and we have announced some DevOps products for people that are creating new applications on the DevOps side, integrating with Chef, Puppet, TeamCity, etc. So our application set is managing everything web service to create applications. So we're still in the application architecture side, but it is a much wider scope.
Let me ask in the audience, how many are involved in DevOps? Not too many. How many are developers on the development side? And how many are on the operations side? So a lot of hands from the operations side, which might explain the lack of enthusiasm for DevOps.
That's correct.
And that's going to be an ongoing conversation. But let me move on down the line. And you can comment on my comment or tell me exactly what are sort of the top issues that you're facing right now, Madhukar.
So issues from, I would say, some of the things that we've been running into when we talk to customers. So we do data integration and data management. And we have been a multi-tenant cloud-based platform for a while. And last couple of years, we created something from scratch. And the reason for that is we started to see that our customers were telling us a few key things. One, because it's in the cloud doesn't mean that you don't get to customize it. So even though you're multi-tenant, there needs to be an incredible flexibility when you provide this solution to your end users. And that's one of the reasons why we headed towards microservices and we implemented that. Second, at least in the data management side of things, now we have the technology that allows you to create the model on the fly. And that's one of the things that we had been struggling with and our customers had been telling us is like, whenever you do data management, the underlying assumption is that I should know that data model before I go in and start querying it. What if you flipped it around and you gave us a solution that allows you to create the model? And I want to be completely invisible to what's underlying, whether it's graph, whether it's time series, key value, doesn't matter. But give us the ability to be able to define that. And so those are the two things that we ran into a lot, and that's what we ended up creating.
Okay. Well, Justin, how is this movement, it appears to be, towards containers, microservices, and DevOps, how is that screwing up your world?
Well, yeah. So from a security perspective, you would normally think that DevOps and security are at odds. So you've got one cycle that's iterating very quickly, and one that's either based in compliance or frameworks that only change, on a periodic basis. But in actuality, DevOps has made more secure workloads because we can be integrated from the very beginning, which is designed for security and include the components that are going to be necessary to test and improve the compliance that you're going to try to achieve right from the beginning. So the amount of unpatched vulnerable systems out there for critical vulnerabilities that have been announced because of some change window lockdowns, that tends to go away when you are releasing code with the latest versions of the secure deployments necessary so that you are accelerating that piece. And our challenges have really shifted more towards working with enterprise shared services companies who are either catching up with a business unit that's in the cloud and can't enforce those standards, or the ones that we prefer, that we see being more successful, creating a framework and then abstracting that to allow business units to come consume the cloud, but in their kind of guardrailed manners.
What are we in the age of the zettabyte now? And that's, help me out. Zettabyte is 1 trillion gigabytes, is that right?
Yeah, I don't know.
And we're at 50%, I think, of data and the internet's being generated by mobile devices.
Yes.
And everything is sort of moving out to the edge, and there's all sorts of problems with data centers and delivery, and we get to talk not only about bandwidth and latency, but the sheer management of that amount of data. You'd like to comment on that, how that's affecting your world, because it seems like the massive growth, maybe related to or irrespective of cloud.
Yeah, so we offer, UC as a service, which includes the mobile side of the house. And, as you see the way the world is changing now, you've got all these BYOD kind of concepts happening.
Yeah.
People are bringing their own mobile devices. And if you look at the data that's generated, people are using more and more apps from the cloud, and they're bringing apps that are not enterprise apps into the mix. And that's sort of bringing a little bit of the shadow IT, into the mix and making it more, challenging to be able to manage all of this, and how we can, ensure that is sort of a big challenge.
Is there a consumer aspect to it too? Not only the shadow IT and the BYOD or PYOD, provide your own device, that companies are doing now, but just consumers, companies that have that are delivering their web content and their services to consumers, and that seems to be equally as large or maybe even larger.
Absolutely. I think the way the things are changing right now with so many apps that are being used in day-to-day environments, it's all blurring right now, the enterprise and the consumer.
So Randy, 1994 with CommVault, and I had no idea. You must have started when you were 15 or something.
You have two kinds.
And before that, in this business. So if you could take us through a few minutes, just sort of when you first started seeing this term cloud appear, what's your first thought of it? There was a sort of old wine in new bottles age that people alleged. What you think of that, and at which point did things actually become profound? That there's a profound shift going on, or if it was from the beginning, let me know that. Kind of take us through the last 20 years.
Good question. One of my personal first thoughts were, I thought we left COBOL and the IBM mainframe behind, and all of a sudden it's the second coming because it's very similar strategy and very similar design. But our first customer actually for example, that used Azure was back in 2008. It was a shipping company in Alaska that would track all the data and containers on their ships, and they just send it directly to the cloud. And the key that we spoke to our customers is, how do I manage that data as seamlessly as I manage on-prem? I don't want to have to get I have a new target and a new compute device, and I don't want to necessarily have to get another data management product, another e-discovery solution, another search solution. How do I use one solution to do that? Now, companies like Microsoft and Amazon, for example, gave us a very nice Windows environment, so our application was immediately certified and immediately ran there. And they had support for Linux and other heterogeneous environments. But the big keys for customers, how do I search for that data? They don't even know where it is anymore. All right? They're lucky if they remember it was Exchange, it was SharePoint, it was a homegrown consumer application. How do I search for that data, regardless if it's on-prem or if it's in the cloud, or which cloud? One of the questions, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we'd always get a question, what hardware server or what SAN do we recommend? And we remain agnostic and say whichever one. And the question today is, well, what cloud platform do we recommend from the storage and compute? And the only suggestion we have now is make sure you pick one that's going to be around 3 to 5 years from now, because we got a call about a little over a year ago from a cloud vendor that said, hey, how you doing? About 6 of your enterprise customers are on our platform. We want to let you know in about 2 weeks we're going to cut the power, turn off all the lights. And we had 6 customers that used Nirvanix as a cloud platform that we had to migrate within 2 weeks. And most went to Azure, some went to AWS. So, big question we get, number one, is who do you recommend? And I'll say, hey, make sure you pick someone you're going to have confidence in that'll be there 3 or 5 years down the line, at least.
What do you think, Roberto, about this API economy? What do you mean? What should people know? How important is it? Sandy this morning said that people should even think of themselves as an open API, to be receptive to things, to be able to work. How does that fit in with your strategy?
Well, it fits very well because we think new applications are going to be API-based or some derivative of APIs. If you go in IoT, it's going to be something related to services. So for us, a service, whether it's an API or an old service or a new type of service on a different protocol, is good. So just think about the new apps and the new applications, how they design today. They're designed through APIs. If you look at everybody that is talking about what's my API, and it could be open APIs or it could be internal APIs, where those APIs are going to be deployed, how they're going to be used, how they're going to be managed and monitored and secure. We actually help with the last three ways, as well as the development of the APIs as well. So if you think in cloud, you think in mobile, APIs is, we call the API economy.
Are customers coming up with things they haven't thought of before, or are they able to do things that they couldn't do before?
I think innovation is new things that you're doing now. So all the new things that are coming up is they're API-based. I mean, you talk to the panel, all these guys have APIs probably.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't have APIs here?
Oh, yeah.
So we work on something called the WebRTC technology, and that's a stack that we provide. And we have something called a BroadSoft Labs, which is like a sandbox. People could come in and we provide them all the tools and they could try out all the tools.
Now the question is how they secure and manage and monitor the SLAs of the APIs.
Well,
that's a different question because there may be some issues there, right? People decide to create APIs without the thinking in mind. And I heard about the development side of DevOps. We help people to actually make sure that they have the policies when they're developing their APIs. So they have to concentrate on security and other aspects, just concentrate on the logic side. So when they get to the operation side, which is a lot of the operation guys are here.
On one little detail, you mentioned WebRTC. How many people are familiar with WebRTC? Some of them are. We have a part of our track, 8, I think it is devoted to WebRTC, and we have one of the world's experts, Peter Dunkley, around to talk about that, and why. If you could explain a little bit, what's the appeal?
For the WebRTC?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this telecom world today, which is basically, you have all the, equipment, unified communications, all this. And then you have this web world. So that is completely, using, HTML5 and all these other things, and you're actually using WebRTC, you're mixing these two worlds, and you're making sure that just using a browser with no plugins, nothing needed, your browser that's enabled on WebRTC to be able to communicate, one-on-one using video, voice, sharing. And it's pretty powerful because you're, pretty soon you're opening up this number of subscribers from, huge with the way the web is. And that brings a lot of new opportunities as well as new threats for existing providers.
Yeah, and if I could ask Madhukar about data integration, what role are things like Hadoop and the NoSQL databases playing in your world?
So first of all, I agree with Roberto that I think everybody has API. And one of the reasons I think we've seen so much of proliferation is the deconstruction of the monolith. The ERP, you now see the CRM being taken away by a cloud-based app. And you look at any one of these, whether it's Salesforce or NetSuite, they all have an API layer. So it has done a couple of things. One, it has increased to some level the complexity of integration because now you have to take care of the underlying data layer.
Right.
But two, at the same time, it's made it a little bit, I would say, easier to integrate as well. It is kind of a paradox over there because earlier you had to go into the ERP and then you had to write integrations directly at that layer. Now you can pretty much do your own integration at the API layer, but as the number increases, it becomes more and more complex. What we've seen, at least, is that our customers now assume that anytime you provide service, API has to be part of that. So when we say, okay, we have this bunch of tools that allow you to access the data, they'll say, that's great. But how about you also give me API so I can read the data, write to that data, and do some other interesting stuff. So their API, I think, has done a number of other things, or it's doing a number of other things. One of them being the tinkering, I would say, gene and people, it has been invoked, where people want to now go talk to a bunch of different APIs to create their application faster and do innovation.
Yes. Yeah, the aspect with APIs is that APIs are used in multiple ways. One is you create new apps. You create new businesses with some APIs. And we're actually happy to enable a hybrid model or create a way for you to promote your APIs to other users. Think about a bank that has a payment API that is used to be internal. And now they want all these users to use it. They have to promote that externally as a product. And there's a business model for that Laura Heritage talks a lot about the business models of APIs. She's probably talking later on today from our team. So what's the business model of your API? Is that internal, external? Is it agility, which is another one? How do you create new apps? Is it agility that I want to create that? And do I want to throw these new APIs in a good way from internal to external, to a mobile or to a cloud device, to a gateway? Okay. API gateways are getting very popular now.
And APIs are critical for our business as well. So we have customers that say, I love your UI, I never want to see it again. I would rather integrate with your outputs so when there's a security incident, it follows my incident workflow, which I manage in my workflow platform, not really in your platform. Or I'd rather feed data in via API so that you can consume that data and reason about it from a security perspective. And then internally, we have microservices like our metadata service. You mentioned earlier supporting multiple clouds. Yeah. Multiple clouds that enriches the incidents that we're giving out that says it was either from this cloud, this cloud, this cloud, or this on-prem. That additional data just gives customers so much more ability to go solve whatever the security issue is.
And then Madhukar, is there, I'll come back to the idea of the non-structured data. Is that playing a role in your...
Oh, absolutely. I think the whole idea of schema on read is taking on a whole meaning and life, at least in the world that we see. And as I had mentioned earlier, one of the things is, so I'll come back to microservices in a second, but one of the key issues we used to see earlier was that data integration and data management are two different fields. You would integrate all the different applications, whether it's Salesforce, NetSuite, or Workday, and then at a later point, you would say, hey, what if I wanted to find out my list of customers who churned in the last month, for example? Now you have to go to an ETL process and a data management process and data cleansing process, and that's a separate process. So now, of course, we're seeing merging of the two, data integration and data management. But when that happened, customers are also demanding for saying, at this earlier way of doing things, I need to define the model first and then bring in the data into it. And if the data doesn't conform to the model that I've already created, I have an integration problem. So I have to go back and change the integration or data management. So the new thing that we see is data should come in any format, structured, right, unstructured. But when I consume it, I would define how I want to consume it, whether I need it for key value pair, because I want to now feed it into a mobile app that I've created, or maybe I want it in graph because I want to find out the relationship between my customer. So at the read time now, the demand is more for define the model at the read time. I don't care how the data is stored. I don't care what kind of data comes in, but be able to materialize the view of that data at the read time. I think it's...
Okay. And then, Randy, we don't have someone from Microsoft here, and I don't expect to be a spokesman for Microsoft, but do you see changes with the company under new management and what's been going on with Azure and everything else with Microsoft?
Satya, who's the new CEO, I think he made a major statement about 1 week on the job, and he made Office available on the iPad. So I think that changed Microsoft's personality overnight. They're aggressive when it comes to cloud. I mean, who here has bought either Amazon or Azure? I mean, just about everyone. All right. The storage is virtually a race to zero. I'm waiting to wake up one day and see that Amazon or Microsoft is going to pay you to use their cloud just to begin, so you can start using their cloud compute technology. All right. It's a race to zero on the pricing. Which anybody here who raised your hand still using tape? Because you and I got to have another discussion if you still are. But what I've seen is, and I'm amazed. We're 25 minutes into this presentation or this session. There's a word I have not heard yet, and it relates to the cloud, and I'm stunned. And it's virtualization. Yep. I'm shocked. I can't believe we've been 25 minutes without mentioning that. And one of the biggest things we're helping our customers with is getting to the cloud. And one of the easier ways is quote-unquote dev test or getting those virtualized machines. Think about it. You have a virtualized environment on-prem, and you can instantly or very quickly move it into the cloud for a quick disaster recovery. That's changed the game for DR significantly. Whether you have Exchange, whether you have SharePoint, SQL, Oracle, it's really independent. So Microsoft has been savvy in making a pure Windows Server environment available in Azure Compute, so applications can move over. We didn't have to change one line of code. We got a couple of devs in the audience here. We didn't change one line of code. We were the first Windows ISV to be Azure certified in the market over a year ago. So one thing Microsoft has compared to Amazon is they have a very large sales force compared to Amazon. Mm-hmm. And if you have a Microsoft sales rep, I'm sure he's talked about putting Azure on your EA. And we have a lot of customers that have gotten it and want to start consuming it. And we help that happen very
I was going to chime in on what you're saying with
ahead.
Microsoft. So from my world, the UCaaS, they're now rebranded their link as Skype for Business, right? And so that's something that they're pushing aggressively. And so I think cloud is something that everybody's looking to use to offer these different services. And we're seeing more of these companies, coming aggressively into the play with the cloud and using the cloud in different ways to offer.
Related to Microsoft, we also run on Azure and Amazon and soon in IBM. IBM and Microsoft have made the hybrid cloud statement very strongly. Like you will need a hybrid cloud rather than just a public cloud or a private cloud. It's a hybrid cloud. And we see a lot of our large enterprise customers, whether banks, health, or airlines, that are using that kind of model very effectively. Some things are for internal, private, and some things are for external. Usually the external is to promote the APIs to other partners and developers. The internal is all those banking applications. For the airlines, it could be your travel stuff, your app that goes out there into your mobile device through the APIs. So that's kind of thing. So Microsoft is getting very strong and aggressive on the hybrid cloud.
Yeah, and Microsoft's unique. I respect all the cloud technology, but SoftLayer, obviously, there's a huge connection with IBM. And IBM wants to do whatever they can to keep their mainframes and large storage devices relevant. Same for EMC. They have Atmos, and they have a vested interest in making sure that the data bits on the EMC devices are feeding Atmos. Microsoft's in that unique position that they're software only. And that gives them, same for Amazon. Amazon doesn't come from a large storage device background. So they may be perceived as a little bit more agnostic.
Well, this is the 16th time that we've done this, that we've done Cloud Expo. 8 of them here in New York and 8 in Silicon Valley. We do it twice a year. Before that, we used the word virtualization was front and center. So maybe I just think I'm too cool to use it anymore, but I'm going to throw the question back at the panel, because who cares what I have to say. Why did it take us that long to bring up the topic of virtualization? I have a theory, but Roberto can enlighten me, and then as well as the rest of you.
Well, I think everybody understands virtualization now. It's been around now for a while. How many people have virtual machines here? Everybody, right? If somebody doesn't have it, it's kind of interesting. Now people are moving to new environments like Docker and other things that are microservices.
Well, that was my real question. Is it under threat? Is this a threat? Is it a binary sort of
Docker is a
decision?
threat because it's a new way to do microservices for applications. So that certainly will be a threat for the virtualized environments.
And there's threats to Docker as well, as far as going down the
But I think from the
container
concept of
OS.
virtualization, I think the container thing is pretty interesting, where at the OS level, you're still having a container that can build, and that's a new concept, right? That's something that's...
It's a new concept to do applications within new containers.
Yeah. I think the cloud compute environment just enables more virtualization. How many people, raise your hands again if you're using virtualization on-prem right now? All right. Now keep your hands up. How many of you actually have those VMs protected in the cloud? One. Oh, you don't count because you have CommVault. So the definition of virtualization in the cloud is very easy. Again, it becomes a very unique disaster recovery opportunity with the cloud hosters now, with all the on-prem. So again, that's one of the big, one of the leading things is people, crawl, walk, run to the cloud, is at least get their VMs on-prem so they can be protected and maybe auto-provisioned in the cloud.
So to get layers of complexity here, Justin, how does this screw up your world?
Yeah, sure. So containerization is definitely different. I mean, if you're moving virtualization from the hypervisor layer up to the application layer, we spend a lot of time with our dedicated research team looking at controls, attack surfaces, attack vectors, and they change. I mean, you still have application level security in both cases, but you lose some network visibility and rely much more heavily on log data, log correlation, and log generated events. So from a containerization standpoint, we've kind of moved up the stack a little bit looking for attack vectors.
Okay, so I'm seeing a cloud of comments and topics, so I'm going to try to narrow it down a little bit, a little Occam's razor here. For your company, Roberto, what are the 3 top things that your customers are facing that bother them, that they're asking you about?
Well, at the high level, our customers trying to do some sort of a digital transformation of the business, whatever the business may be. You take some of the people like the people that harvest crops all over the place. They want to know the data, whatever the data comes.
Farmers, they're called.
Well, the big companies
I
that
know.
sell farm equipment without mentioning.
Actually, there are no farmers anymore.
Without mentioning the actual companies, 'cause I can't.
All companies.
But they have sensors out there bringing data into.
That's right.
They want to analyze the crops. They want to analyze everything, and that's all is done through APIs. They want to get other people to use that data, so they want to provide APIs to share the APIs to other people. I mentioned the payment side. The health data, health people trying to do the healthcare is going through a big transformation. Everything has to go digital as well. So you imagine that how they're going to do the digital internal for a hybrid cloud and creating the right applications as well as the security of the data and security of the APIs.
But you talk about digital transformation, it's such a huge topic. It comes down to just in healthcare and agriculture and even in something small like logistics.
Normally, the people that talk to us are the enterprise architects.
Yeah.
The enterprise architects are devising new applications of some kind. They're creating new business models of some kind. When I talk digital transformation, it's like CIOs are thinking in that way. What do I have to do my business now into a new model that has to be everything digital? And that's an interesting conversation because it becomes a big architecture of the business, not just the architecture of the applications.
Yep, go ahead.
So from our perspective, we see a couple of things. One, most of the IT teams that we talk to, 90% of them, I was reading somewhere, they start off a new integration project every year. And each one of these projects get delayed, for sure. So people are getting sick of doing integration. And it's getting, I would say, commoditized at some extent. You have IFTTT on one end where you can go and create your own recipes for integration. But on the other side, like I said, it's getting more and more complex. And people are saying, really what I'm interested is in finding out insights from my data. And that insights I need to find both in real time, but also longitudinally over a period of time, especially in pharma and healthcare, where if you're trying to recruit patients for a cohort to do your clinical test, it's very important that you be able to not only have clean data, but you be able to also figure out a longitudinal look at that data. And when we talk to these folks, so we also talk to IT as well as outside lines of businesses, one, we see more and more people are getting, I would say, sick and tired is a strong word, but they're getting more jaded about integration. Weary about integration.
Yeah.
But they are very enthusiastic about the data that their company collects, that they are domain experts on, and they want to create some more innovative stuff on top of it.
Well, I mean, again, the data amounts are growing as never before,
Right.
and all sorts of. I mean, I think there may be a hockey stick involved in terms of the amount of data that
At least for the new cloud applications, the IT departments are demanding APIs for integration. So some people are doing cloud integration instead of adapters like they always.
Yeah.
Because it's much easier to do the cloud integration at that level.
I know, so there are a bunch of different architecture patterns out there, right? One of them is, well, you have connectors, and you have connectors today in hundreds. Those connectors might be thousands later on. And then after that, what? When you have more and more applications, you can't continue to rely on connectors because they would change the APIs.
Yeah, we think connectors are the wrong way to go. We call it connector-less integration from our perspective.
What security, to what degree are there
Sure.
this concept of going hunting for mosquitoes with a shotgun? I mean,
Yeah.
it's not applied throughout.
I think what keeps them up at night literally
Yeah.
is deploying secure and compliant workloads in the cloud. And
Okay.
there's a paradigm shift from let's just build the world's biggest wall and keep everyone out to incidents are going to happen. What's our process? How quickly can we detect and react to an incident in a secure way and keep our workloads secure?
And how much of it is fairly simple stuff that just need to have better habits, and how much of it is, that's one question. Then a whole separate question you brought up is the idea of reaction. How
Sure.
much is-
Yeah, so there's really good frameworks out there that act as a tactical implementation for deploying secure workloads. We have a fairly large managed services practice that helps with the rest of that component of, okay, this isn't my daily job to react to compromised keys or to react to, one of my hosts that's now a zombie in a huge botnet. What do I need to do now to go remediate this activity? And that's where our managed services comes in and helps customers with that component.
Is there a global component to what you're doing?
Yes, yeah. So we have security operations centers in the U.S. and the EU.
And I'm just trying to think if you're a very large enterprise, multinational corporation. What I'm getting at is to what role are governments messing with your world that you could talk about, and assuming that everything that every government tells you is a lie?
Sure. So data residency is where it comes up
Yes.
more. And so there are unique data residency challenges in the EU, as well as in Germany, as well as in China, and in the US. And so today we have not just two separate security operations centers, but also two data stores that are completely separate between the US and the EU.
Oh, okay. Randy, you were going to chip in there.
Yeah, data sovereignty for multinationals is critical. You have to be able to, manage the data within country. They do not want it leaving in most of the EU right now. So your permissions, your security subsystems have to enable the people in country to see only the data in country. And then the question is, hopefully have a single solution to enable that. And that's what we do. We'll demonstrate that a lot at 440 today in one of our sessions for how to search, how to find data, and limit the visibility of who has access to what data, whether it's your typical on-prem apps or your newer cloud-induced, cloud-based applications. But the security subsystem, who's allowed to do what to the data, even when, is critical to the component. A lot of the mid-sized and large customers, they don't want to have to run a separate system in Germany, a separate system in Norway, a separate system in the US, a separate system in China. So if you're part of a multinational, even though you're residing in the US, you're connected to those opportunities, which sometimes referred to as challenges.
How much of the data is sort of ephemeral, and how much of it how much of it just sort of goes away, is not important to keep it around for a long time, and because
I sum it up with, if you work for a company that makes $1 of business today, you are under some sort of compliance. The question is if you have a 5-year, 7-year, 21-year, or 100-year retention period. So, it's almost the laws have changed in some of these countries. It's the, if Carol user comes back and says, they promised me $100,000 if I didn't get my widget delivered by Wednesday, here's a piece of documentation to show that. The business is almost has to prove their innocence to refute that, because they're coming in with a piece of paper that could have been printed out directly out of an email or out of SharePoint, or it just could have been just hand typed out a Word. And it's up to those businesses to refute that and find that data and retain it for that amount of time. And it's the access within compliance that makes a key difference for businesses going to the cloud.
You said yes on all that.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at from our perspective, even when you look at data verticals and all that, medical has different things, the HIPAA regulations and other things that, how you, all of this data is all regulated, and we want to make sure that it's in compliance. From BroadSoft's perspective, right, I mean, we sell to the operators. I mean, we're sort of powering the operators. And we also look at the people we sell through to, which is the end customer. So from our perspective, for the operators, they're looking at how to make, how to monetize in this environment where you have these applications that are coming in, they're getting crunched there. From the subscribers itself, from the end user perspective, they have all these plethora of devices. They want to have the same user experience, no matter whether they're consuming from the cloud, from the premise, they want to have the same user experience. So to be able to provide all of that, those are some of the things that keep.
Is that going to calm down anytime soon? No, you mentioned a plethora of devices.
That's going to get a lot worse and a lot more complex. I'll give 2 examples of customers we're working with. One is airlines, and the jet engines are actually sending real-time data to the home office, and they're actually getting retuned for less gas consumption on the fly while you're on the plane.
I was talking
so it's the
to
internet-connected
someone,
devices that's exploiting that data. The second one is an extension of what you said before on the farmers, is that, and I have a picture of it during my presentation, which is, let's take New Zealand, for example, about 3-4 million people, about 40 million sheep and 40 million cows. Well, a lot of the cows are internet-connected devices.
Yes.
And it's not just where they feed. It's the temperature of the cow, if the cow is pregnant, where they go, what they're doing on different days.
The other word we didn't mention is IoT.
Yeah, well, cows can't tweet very well. That's the good news here. It just doesn't.
But think about the airline responsibility to keep that data and retain it.
Oh, yeah.
Because of, anything should happen, airlines are late, something happens to the flight, or the farmer too, the cow, if something happened to the cow.
There's
that data has to be retained for a long period of time.
There's the real-time aspect of it. I was talking to someone from GE Software, and they said, Internet of Things, that's, to us, a thing is a nuclear power plant, a jet engine, or a locomotive. And so not only the in-flight stuff that's in real time that they're monitoring, they're also keeping this stuff and creating these enormous data lakes.
I just want to mention, I live in the Bay Area, so I attended recently a conference there, and one of those people, a company does this, into environmental stuff. Yeah. They have like a button that they sell. It's an IoT device, and it measures the ozone. Everybody has it, and it all goes to the cloud source, and it's interesting the different applications of cloud that they're using and these devices, right?
So I was going to make a comment in terms of the current security model is broken, and people, even the largest bank, you can read it, is public, in the United States is spent $400 million on security, and they were penetrated. So the new old model of a moat is obsolete. Now they got to secure the application somehow. With IoT, it's become even worse because there's no moat. Everybody's out there. So how do you secure those things? You got to go to the actual services, securing the services at that level.
Well, and again, what degrees of security need to be applied at every point along the way of an Internet of Things deployment, and for what reason? I mean, how important is this? If you have a little beacon, how important is it, that particular piece of data? How valuable is it?
It's going to depend. If it's a large engine, you have to have a lot of security for that. If it's a small thing, monitor your pressure. You don't have that much place to put stuff in.
So I'm seeing, applications where in the city they have these parking units where, those are all IoT devices. With the car, they are able to tell exactly which slot is open. And,
Yeah.
and even the law agencies are using the cars that are overtime to
Right. Yeah, there's a big problem in San Francisco now with those
exactly.
applications. It's sort of they're doing an Uber
Right.
To the
Right.
police department or something like that. It's going to spread. Yes.
So to add to this point, I think the key point over there is it depends, and that's true for a lot of other things as well. But I think I was reading what Box did was pretty cool in the sense they encrypted the data and handed over the key to the customer or the end customer. So now if the government comes to you asking for the data, you don't really have access to the unencrypted data. So in that vein, I feel tokenization is something to watch out for the next few years, where whether it's IoT or any other data, you de-identify that data, store it, and then use that token for the rest of the business. So that's something that we have been running into as well.
It says here we got a couple minutes left, but we're actually about ready to run out of time. And you can answer yes or no, or just add a few seconds to this. We started to talk about how the cloud has evolved. So a few years ago, that would have been public-private hybrid. That was the conversation. But we ended up talking about the Internet of Things. So it sounds like the future is just going to get more complex, a lot more devices, a lot more data, a lot more problems, which means a lot more jobs because someone has to solve those problems.
A lot more products for me to sell.
A lot more products to sell. Is that a good or bad thing? Is this IoT can sound chaotic or it can sound very optimistic? What do you
It's
say?
going to be chaotic at first, but it's optimistic for the things that you can do with it.
Yeah.
There's so many positive things you can do with that. Just see what people are doing with the watch, with the Apple Watch. See what people are doing with the different measurements of different things, whether small or large devices.
Okay.
But certainly, security is going to be an issue. Management of those things is going to be an issue. Monitoring of those things is going to be an issue. So.
Okay, Madhukar?
I think very exciting because it opens up a whole plethora of things that you can do from technology side of things. So I personally look forward to it.
And we have a reason to keep doing the shows, too, because
exactly.
there's always these issues, Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. And the security conversation is already front and center. IoT brings that even more front and center. Not just airlines, but SCADA networks, oil and gas, critical systems. These are all networks that need to be highly secure.
So to me, transition is done, actually. Cloud, everybody's going cloud. It's just the transformation phase is going on right now. I mean, all these new companies coming in, Uber, you can't even imagine what they're doing with geolocation and trying to locate the person as well as the device. All this is not possible without the cloud, so it's pretty exciting times.
Okay, all right.
There's more data, there's more opportunity, there's more applications. So we're going to, I think you referred to the hockey stick before. There's a hockey stick of opportunity coming here.
This panel actually filled the room. Usually people leave. We actually end up with more people than when we started. So congratulations. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And please talk to our attendees and learn more. Thank you.